Felting is one of the world's oldest types of textile work. They have found evidence going back thousands of years before Jesus Christ, where people used this process to make clothing and hats and even toys. It's a product that ends up lasting forever. It's very durable and it is so much fun. So the way I start is to use a little armature, which is just like framework, using a pipe cleaner. You can use regular wire too, but I kind of like the fluffiness of a pipe cleaner because it gives me a little body to get started with. So I'm making these little stars. And what you want to do is start with just some little fluffy sections of your carded wool. You want carded wool. Now I want to give you a heads up so you don't make the same mistake I did. I got the wrong kind of wool. This is beautiful and you could use it, but it would take you about 5 times longer. This is combed and so it has very delicate strands, almost like thread. So this is what you'll want to look for instead. It's a little rougher, and this has a tendency to just be much easier to just separate and spread over your little framework. What you want to do is wrap. You don't have to wrap in any order or any particular pattern, but you do want to wrap fairly tightly. So I'm just going to wrap forward and backward. I'm going to fluff some through the middle, come back around, go down around the bottom. It will kind of stick to itself too. It reminds me a lot of cotton batting that you use when you're making quilts and pillows and stuff like that, but it's wool, it's different. So I'm going to get the basic shape of what I want. So see, this is longer than I want, but you really can't make a mistake. You can tear it off, and if that doesn't work, you can even cut it if you have more than you want. Put it back in there in the middle. The whole process is just super forgiving and very easy. Okay, now you're ready to start poking with your needles. So when you first start with your rough design, you want a little bit of a larger needle. These needles have little barbs on them. They're pointed like a sewing needle, but all down the shaft, they've got little barbs. They kind of like snag the wool. Now they make a little holder. You can buy the ones that have a little holder. They even come like this. You can take this apart, put your needle in there. But I change my needle so frequently that I think it's just as easy to use it by hand like this. And if you're doing a lot of needle felting, you can buy a multi-needle tool, which really works well if you're doing larger animals. If you are just starting with a large puff of wool to make the body of a bigger animal, this makes your work a little faster because you can use 7 needles at one time. So you can buy a little pad to work with, but I just had a little piece of foam rubber that I chopped. And what you're going to do to start is just start poking the wool around your armature. And see what happens when you do that is it's almost like stitching it together. Those little barbs inside catch the wool and they actually attach the fibers so that it stays. Wherever you poke it, it just stays. So as you go, you can just twirl it around, go between your fingers. When you get to the end, kind of twirl your wool, poke it down. Being careful not to get your fingers. You will poke yourself. Some people wear little finger pads, but I'm old and I've got tough fingers. twist it, wrap it, poke it, shape it. Now the more you poke it, the stiffer the wool will become. So if you poke it a lot, you'll end up with something that's kind of like thick felt, like the felt squares that you can buy at the fabric store. If you poke it a little bit less, you'll have more of a fluffy shape. But what I want right now, of course, is to secure these little points around my armature. So you want this more shaped at the intersection of the arms of the star. So I'm going to pull that in and secure it. I'm going to pull this in, secure it, pull that in to give it more definition. You want that point to come up, just kind of pull it as you go. But be careful. You will break a few needles, but that's okay. They give you plenty. I'm going to switch to a finer needle because it's pretty much tacked together now. So now I just kind of want to define the shape a little bit more. So here I have the basic shape of my star. It's not perfect, it's irregular in some places, but that's where I take my little fine finishing needle and move the wool around a little bit. But now I can see that this is kind of flat. I want it to be kind of fat, like this little guy, fluffy. So I'm just going to get some more of my carded wool and put it where I want it. So I kind of want it to be like right here in the middle. That's where I need it to have a little bit more of a little fat tummy. So just start poking it in where you want it. Pull it down, poke it in. You kind of want to blend it. The repetition involved in this is kind of what makes it so fun, and it's mindless. It's not like crocheting or knitting. You don't have to count. You don't have to have any talent like painting or drawing. It's just freehand. Here you go. After about 1 billion pokes, here's how my little moon and stars turned out. So you can make anything, and the rest of what I'm going to be doing are some little bunnies. They're actually jackalopes, but you start with the same rudimentary basic structure, and it's not even very stable, but you continue to work on it, and eventually it is. So that is the first little guy I ever made doing needle felting. You just poke away everything that doesn't look like a bunny, and there you have it. You can use the little needles to define, like where his little thigh is. Same thing over here. You can just define it by stitching with your needle over and over. Same thing with his little shoulder. So like with his ears, get a little piece of foam. If you want him to be a little flatter, you can just poke a little bit more against your little form. If you want some indentations in the center of the ear, you can do that with your needle. And then when you get really good, you can take a contrasting color and poke a little bit of wool in and make eyes. But this little guy, he's going to be with a bunch of little brothers that are going to be all different colors, and they're not going to have eyes. I just used a teeny drop of hot glue to attach his antlers. Here we are at the end of the project. Everybody's got to have a little booty. Look at these adorable cottontails. Now these are not mine, but I just wanted to show you the endless possibilities of needle felting. A lot of people make these, they go into business and sell them, but they are just adorable. If you want more ideas, just Google it. So here's the mobile all finished. The crowning glory for me, you guys, is that I used my mom's embroidery hoop at the very top to hold it all together. So there's an added little touch of love from this little baby's great grandma. In fairness, I want to share with you guys that felting is labor intensive and time consuming, but it is the very work of your own hands. And it is one of those wonderful good things that you can pass on to someone that you love. I have to tell you, it was the greatest joy and privilege to work on this project for my daughter. And over each little creation, I prayed and I tucked precious blessings that will float over the head of my new little grandson. You guys remember, see the good and be the good. I love you.